At a recent press conference in the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, head of Sony Productions Asad Kizilbash confirmed that a Horizon Zero Dawn movie is in the early stages of development. Here's what he had to say.
Columbia Pictures and PlayStation Productions are at the early stages of developing a film adaptation of the award-winning Horizon Zero Dawn.
And while this is really good news and is something that has me and fellow Horizon fans really excited, there's no denying that there's reason to be skeptical. It's not exactly like video game movies have a rich history of success.
What the hell happened to you two?
Fell out of a car that fell out of a plane?
Huh. Hey, something like that happened to me once.
So let's talk about the Horizon Zero Dawn movie, and be sure to let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. But I first want to start by talking about everything that we know so far, which should be quick because we really don't know very much at all. The press conference itself was nearly an hour long, and I've linked it in the description below if you want to check the full thing out. But they did actually talk about LEGO Horizon Adventures and the song behind it a lot more than they actually talked about the Horizon Zero Dawn movie. But there are a couple of key things to pick up on in the short announcement. For one, they mentioned that it was in the early stages of development, which basically tells me that there's still a possibility that this may not happen at all. I'd imagine that they're still in the script writing or screenwriting phase, which for some movies ends up lasting indefinitely. So just because it was mentioned in the press conference still doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. Now, they also mentioned that it's an adventure in Aloy's origin story, meaning it's not going to be some sort of prequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. I have seen a lot of the conversation and the speculation around maybe the fact that it's going to be about the Pharaoh Plague or some of the events leading up to Zero Dawn, but from the sounds of the press conference and what they said, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like we're going to be getting something that's basically a retelling of the Horizon Zero Dawn story in live action. And finally, they say that it's going to take place in a vibrant, futuristic world full of giant machines, which this part has me the most excited out of any of it. You mean to tell me we're actually going to get to see a Thunderjaw or a Scorcher or a Rockbreaker in live action? I mean, that's just awesome. Now, prior to the Horizon movie announcement, they also give a couple of other mentions that a Helldivers 2 movie is in the works, as well as a Ghost of Tsushima animated series and an Until Dawn movie, which is going to be releasing later on this year. And while they don't specifically say this about the Horizon mention, they do talk about in those other announcements how it's important for them to be respectful and true to the source material. Now, that could of course just be corporate speak to appease the fans. I mean, it's not exactly like they're gonna come out and say that they're getting away from the source material completely and they're gonna do something entirely different. But I feel like it's a good sign that they're at least acknowledging the source material, because they could just not say anything at all. So this at least gives me a little bit of hope that this isn't going to completely suck. Now, one other thing that stands out to me is the fact that instead of getting a Netflix TV show, which was the original plan, it looks like that has fully been scrapped, and instead now we're getting this full feature film. And to be honest, I'm glad the Netflix thing didn't really work out. The idea of a show based on Horizon, which is a series that I absolutely love, mixed with the quality of some of the stuff that we've seen from Netflix, always had me a little bit on edge. But I do think it's worth debating whether or not Horizon is a series that's better suited for the big screen or something that would be better told in a series. I mean, if you've played Horizon, then you know. It's a 20-some hour campaign if you mainline the story, and there's so much other side content and things to do and things to explore that aren't part of the main story that are really what makes Horizon unique and interesting and something that's a lot different from anything else that's out there. Things like exploring the ancient ruins or climbing to the top of a tall neck, or even just exploring the world and scanning all those different data points that really kind of help to flesh out the way the world was. And they tell a lot of those different stories that really don't just get mentioned in the game. And then there's the actual machine hunting itself, which is obviously a huge component of the game, but when you really stop to think about it, it's not really that important to the main story. It's something that you do as part of the game, which helps make the combat interesting and the world a lot more unique. But if you stripped out the Thunderjaws and the bandit camps, you'd still have the basic components of the main story. It's kind of like Game of Thrones, right? Where the battles and the politics and the fighting for the Iron Throne, when you really think about it, weren't actually part of the main story. The main story was all about the White Walkers and how they were eventually going to take over the world. But it was really the battle for the Iron Throne that was just a lot more interesting. It's same with Star Wars, really. Like, the lightsabers themselves aren't really part of the main story, but that's just one little cool detail that makes that so awesome and unique. The story of Horizon, really at its most basic, is about Aloy fighting a corrupted Hades and trying to save humanity from extinction. But the more interesting part of the story, at least for me anyways, is all the other little things that help make Horizon Horizon. So how do you really take all that and dispel it down into something that's only 1.5 to 2 hours long? I mean, that is a really tough task, and it's one of the reasons why I'm skeptical, and I imagine that's probably why you're skeptical about this as well. And I think that's probably a really valid reason for why a lot of Horizon fans are on the fence. In a lot of ways, I think that's probably one of the reasons why a series would be a lot better. Instead of squeezing everything into a 2-hour movie, you'd have between 8 to 10 episodes of about an hour each to really give the story time to develop and you can have time to unpack everything. I think that's why shows like The Last of Us and Fallout are so great. You can dedicate entire episodes to side quests or side characters and really let the story take time to develop. Also with a series, you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to a specific time frame because you can have multiple seasons. Sure, movies can have sequels, but you still run into the same time constraints with each different movie, and the development of each movie just takes a lot longer than you see between seasons of shows. So I don't know, at the end of the day, is a movie really better than a series? Probably not, but I think we have seen examples of both. I mean, Lord of the Rings is an epic series of movies, but the series is pretty boring. And with Star Wars or Marvel, it's like you get a little bit of both. You get some good movies and then some good series, and a lot of it just kind of falls somewhere in the middle. Now, would I rather have a Sony production movie than a Netflix TV show? Definitely yes. But would I rather have an HBO series than the Sony movie productions? Yeah, probably. But I think at the end of the day, it really just comes down to the casting and the script. Now, I do want to spend some time on the casting because I think that this is an area where we can spend a little time and have a little bit of fun. But I want to come back to that because I've got a couple of bold predictions of things that I think are probably going to get left on the cutting room floor. I think you can dig into the background and upbringing of Aloy and her relationship with Rost and the Nora through flashbacks that basically take place throughout the story. So instead of having it be like Act 1 of a movie, kind of like it's set up in the game, you can just kind of tell that story throughout. You can basically start the movie right when Sylens gets in touch with Aloy, which takes place about halfway or so through the game, give or take, and then pick things up from there. There's a lot of action and tension right in that part of the game, so I think that has a better possibility of getting people hooked right from the beginning. And I feel like you almost have to change the Sylens character a little bit, and I know that that's something that fans are absolutely gonna hate, and trust me, I do too, because I think he's probably one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting characters in the entire series. But it takes a long time for him to develop as a character. I mean, he starts out as kind of this mysterious, shadowy figure that's just kind of speaking to Aloy through her focus. And over time, you really start to realize that he's only motivated by his own ambitions and his obsession with knowledge. And he's really only using her to justify his own means. But Sylens and Aloy's relationship is really complicated. And he does ultimately kind of end up having some sort of redemption arc, but this takes a long time to develop. I mean, after 2 full games and 2 DLCs, we still really don't even know where that relationship or that character is going to go in Horizon 3. So again, if I had to guess based on absolutely no information at all, I would have to guess that they're going to make him more of a mentor or a guide character to Aloy rather than an anti-hero. Maybe thinking of him as like more of like an Obi-Wan character, someone that can kind of help her progress the story but also kind of show her the path. And again, I don't like it either, but I feel like without dedicating a significant portion of the movie to him and his character, there's just no way that they're going to be able to do him justice. And machine fighting is probably another area of the movie that I feel like will probably end up taking a back seat. If I had to speculate, we probably get machine fighting scenes as part of flashbacks with Rost teaching Aloy how to fight. And then we probably get a really cool scene with Aloy fighting in the machine arena when she's captured by Helis. I can see that being one of the main action set pieces in the movie. And then there's probably going to be the climactic third act where we get the Deathbringers invading Meridian, or maybe they switch that up to be Thunderjaws invading Meridian or some other heavyweight machine, which would be totally awesome. But I can't imagine the machine fighting itself is going to be a main focal point of the game. I think it'll probably just be something that kind of happens in the background. But hey, if any of the team members from Sony Productions are watching this video and want my thoughts or opinions on it, definitely contact me. My DMs are wide open. Okay, now let's go back and talk about Sylens, because obviously the ideal scenario here is that Lance Reddick in person would be able to reprise his role as Sylens, but we know at this stage that that's just not possible because Lance Reddick passed a few years ago. I truly can't imagine that character as anyone else. I mean, it's such an iconic role, and he was already such a well-established actor when he played the role of Sylens that it would just be such a natural fit. But I'm curious about what you think about the casting of Sylens. I mean, how do they handle that character? He's obviously too important of a character to just not include at all, but he's also just too iconic to just recast, which I know they'll ultimately have to do. There's just no way around it. It's a tough spot to be in for sure. I don't envy the writers at all. At the end of the day, I just hope it's something that's respectful to Lance, his family, the character, and of course the fans who are all really invested and appreciate that character so much. And then there's obviously Aloy, who's going to be the main character of the story. And I think this is actually one of the advantages that a Horizon movie has. They actually base their character models on real life actors, and these actors in a lot of situations are pretty well known and respected in their own right. For example, the character model for Aloy is Hannah Hoekstra, who's a pretty decorated actor, and she's been in a handful of films already. I mean, it's actually kind of hard to see her in a movie because she looks so much like Aloy, and I play that game so often that it seems like the game is still kind of coming to life. I mean, it's really creepy how similar she looks.
Quick, the camera, get the camera. Oh my, I've always wanted to see a bear in real life.
So that of course would probably be a pretty natural fit, but I've also heard the name Rose Leslie from Game of Thrones being thrown around, although Horizon Zero Dawn does take place when Aloy is still kind of a teenager, so that might be a little bit difficult.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
And of course there's Ashley Birch, who voices the character of Aloy, who's also a very decorated, well-respected, and really good actor. I feel like they probably couldn't cast her as Aloy, but there's gotta be some sort of way to work her into the film. I mean, she knows that character so well and she's been playing her for so long. I just can't imagine that they don't put her in there, even if it's just a nod to fans. But what do you think? Who would be your ultimate choice to play Aloy? And let me know if you have any other thoughts on any of the other main characters in the movie. I mean, we'll probably get Varl and Erend and Rost. Those are all probably going to be pretty main characters, so pretty big shoes to fill. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Alright, and those are all the thoughts and opinions that I have on the Horizon movie off the top of my head, because we don't have that much information at this point. I'm sure as we see and hear more, I'll have a lot more thoughts, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of it. And what do you want to see in a Horizon movie? Does the thought of a Horizon movie have you a little bit on edge? Are you skeptical, or is this something you're excited about? I mean, let's have a conversation about it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Whatever you do, don't.
Rob!
Oh no! Oh no!
I can't go, Stop!